and welcome to yet another episode of the Green and White podcast brought to you by Argyle Life. After a performance Wayne Rooney described as nowhere near good enough, Argyle still somehow came away with a point. That's good, right? Right? It wasn't long before the returning Kane was able to get in behind, and from his parried shot, the visitors took the lead and Preston pressed on and tightened their grip on the game throughout the first half, claiming a second before Argyle could escape up the tunnel. And it wasn't the boys in blue who got the boos when the whistle went. And little change when it went again. Barely had the match restarted when North End got their third. And although Freddie Gambling was in exactly the right place to fire home a parried free kick, it did nothing, it seemed, to wake Argyle from their slumber. Rooney lamented schoolboy defending. Again and again, Preston broke out with one ball, often 3-on-3 most of the time. And again, they declined opportunities, they squandered shots, or they faced the impressive Daniel Grimshaw, who sure kept the scoreline being much grimmer. And yet, though they should have been so far out of sight, they'd be closer to Lancashire than Devon. The Lily Whites developed lily livers late on and seemed to cave to not much pressure. It all went south for North End in the second minute of added time. As for the fourth game in a row at home park, I believe, Argyle scored a goal after the clock had ticked past 90. Euphoria in the moment. Concerns on reflection? It could be an important result come the end of the season, and Preston will still now be wondering how the Heckingbottom they didn't leave with all 3 points. We're running a skeleton crew on the good ship Mayflower tonight, but you know what they say, it's quality and not quantity. Joining me are the beautifully bearded Graham. Hi, Graham.
Evening.
And the handsomely headsetted Adam.
Good evening. Thank you for your kind words as ever.
Yeah, thank you for the hundreds, if not thousands, of letters that we've received saying how much you've enjoyed me filling the top left corner of your screen and pleading, nay, demanding that I return. And that's the only reason that I'm back hosting today, and nothing to do with the fact that Aaron was overcome in euphoria with his favourite team coming back at home to snatch a 3-3 draw and needing a lie down. But that's enough about Norwich versus Borough. Let's talk about the best 3-3 of the weekend, which was Argyle at home to Preston North End. Graham, let's see how your internet holds up, and would you like to give us a little run through of the game as you saw it?
Well, to be honest, first half I thought it was going to be another Cardiff horror show, because the number of times Preston broke through, particularly on our left-hand side. And to be fair, we could have been 3 or 4 down at half-time, similar to Cardiff. I think we've only got Grimshaw to thank for his outstretched hand or leg to save us from real embarrassment. And then to cap it all, they got a third straight after half-time. The stream of people leaving early was ominous. But Freddie getting that goal from the smart save by Woodman, I thought he finished really well first time, bang. And we sort of just changed completely. Confidence grew a bit. The crowd obviously was lifted, as it has been the last 4 games. I mean, home park is a remarkable stadium when it's bouncing, and it started to bounce. And when Gray got the second goal, it really did. And the third seemed inevitable. And the fourth, improbable, but the improbable almost happened, but for Woodman's fingertips. If that had gone in, oh my word, I don't know, we would never see the likes again. But it shouldn't mask what was really a pretty awful 2/3 of the game, where we were nowhere near Preston. They're another Millwall type, championship stalwarts, dark arts, the lot, and we seem soft touch against teams like that, and they gave us the runaround physically, pace wise, the strategy of breaking down our wings where our inverted fullbacks had disappeared on both sides without any proper cover. And the first goal was KKH got free from Freddie. Freddie was a bit switched off. Barley was wrong-sided, got a half-hearted tackle in. Danny Grimshaw got the smart save, and then a really unfortunate deflection off, I think it was Such. Second goal, Rans lost possession in her own half, and Barley was stranded upfield. Parson failed to block the shot, and I think it's Frockier Jensen, I think his name was, scored relatively easily. And that was just before half time. Then the third goal, straight through the middle. I don't really know how it happened, but Edwards was wrong-sided, stretched for it, got a hamstring for his troubles. And, oh my God, it was head in the hands job. But then, as I say, Freddie, then Andre Gray, who I must say looks smart. I mean, you could tell he's been around a bit. And he, right place, right time, smart header, was never going to miss it. The third goal, again, left wing cross, far to Bundu, slotted it back. And I think Morgan slightly slipped, but he did mean to put it in their post. And Bedlam resulted. And if only the fourth had gone in, it would have been even better. But my word, you get your money's worth at Home Park. That's...
Yeah, for sure. I think that we'd have definitely taken the three goals at the start of the day. If you said we'd score 3 goals at home against Preston, we'd have thought we'd be having a field day. But it actually, as Wayne Rooney said, Adam, in his press conference afterwards, today could have been a lot worse. We could have scored the 3 and still have lost that game, it seemed. So where does this lie on the? Should this be a positive that we got absolutely hammered and got a point back, or should we be looking at as Graham said, the 3/4 of that game that were just abject and worrying? Where does the needle lie between the two?
I think if you put yourself in the situation of, where are we better for the entirety of the game, or were we worse for the entirety of the game, I think that kind of answers the question. So it's much more bad than good. But I'm taken back actually to when I was on this podcast when it was slightly rebranded over the summer to cover the England games, when England had somehow come through that last 16 tie with Slovakia. And I think the very first thing you had to say after that was, it's not good enough. That was not a good enough performance. There's no way we're going to get further in this competition if we keep playing like that. And very similar again. If Argyle play like that every week, we're going to lose more than we win, and it's not going to serve us well. But I then look back to that Slovakia game, and all anyone could possibly talk about afterwards, for the most part, is the fact that there was a 95th minute bicycle kick in that game. And I think we've seen something similarly remarkable yesterday, in the sense that we were completely dead and buried, could easily have been more in a terrible performance. And I think, and I'm not going to take credit for this stat. It's come directly from who else but Sam Down. But it's the second time since the turn of the century that we've gone 3-0 down and managed to come back and not lose the game. So it's not something that happens very regularly. So when that happens, I mean, how can you not feel positive? How can you not appreciate the fight that's got into that, and the fact that we've somehow managed to come out from a game where we were completely diabolical and didn't lose it? I've had a comparison to the England-Slovakia game. Let me put it to another comparison to QPR as well. In that game, we found ourselves facing adversity, and much like it was yesterday, that adversity we were facing was totally of our own doing. And yet there was some fight in that side, and there was some fight at the never say die attitude, if you like, that managed to get us a point against QPR that we probably didn't deserve. And yesterday we certainly didn't deserve a point from the 3 goals down, and we got one. And that's something I think we can cling on to, particularly after a couple of performances where it didn't feel like there was any fight at all at Cardiff and Millwall. The fact that we were able to put that to one side, on one occasion yesterday, before Freddie Asaka scored, we conceded 9 goals without reply. And it never looked like we were going to be able to find one, let alone 3. So the fact that we've managed that is something that we've got to cling on to. We've got to take forward from here, because, like I say, how can you not feel enthusiastic about coming from 3 goals down and not losing the game well into the second half. So, yeah, I think in the cold light of day, I really appreciated Rooney's comments after the game. He knew it wasn't good enough, as we all did. And I'd be much more worried, actually, if he said, that's exactly what we're looking for, because of course it wasn't. But I think for us as supporters, with how we've suffered in the last 7 days, the fact that we've somehow managed to pull that out the bag, yeah, it was hard not to leave Home Park with a smile on my face, despite the performance I'd just seen. So, yeah, we've got a positive to cling on to. It never looked like we were able to. I think, as I say, there's mainly negatives, or should I say, lessons to learn to take forward. Then there are positives. But yeah, hard not to be enthralled when that happens.
Just to take a broader view before we focus back on the game, Graham, Wayne Rooney changed the system a few games back, sort of about 6 games back now. He's changed things up, and it really seemed to work. Do you think now that it seems to me, anyway, at least you can rebut this if you like, but it seems to me that teams have worked out both how we press and how we're building up now. We sort of had a run of 3 good games, and since the international break, it seems that teams have worked us out a little bit. Do you think that means that we need to change things yet again? Or is it a case of waiting to get the personnel back? Well, what do you think needs to happen? Is it going to be a big issue or a small issue, do you think? Is it going to be a big issue or a small issue, do you think?
I think we should have a home and away side, a bit like Paul Sturrock used to do in his Mark 1 days, where he set up 4-5-1 away from home and then sucked them in and then normally hit them on the break. We did that against West Brom, and I thought West Brom was comfortably our best away performance. We looked really good, we looked solid. To a lesser extent, we did against Burnley. But the answer to your question, Ian's found this out. I think a little bit they have. They were exposing our full-back inversion with regularity, certainly away from home, and worryingly on yesterday at home, where Rams is the central person in the team. He's the player that Danny Grimshaw will look for to play to, even if he has to play to it with somebody in his back, and then he hits it right or left to the wing back or full back. And I think they're not only man marking Morgs as they used to, but they're really hassling Adam Randall. He had a rather uncomfortable first half. He lost possession a few times. He was really hassled out of it. And I mean, to his absolute credit, he got stronger as the game got on, and obviously with the second goal, made that fantastic cross. But it was inevitable when you're going to play like the way we played. Teams are going to look how to stop you, and I thought Preston had a fairly effective way of stopping us, and then really hitting us quickly on the break. And with our current personnel in that, we're not set up to restrain them. We're not physical. We haven't got the pace in the right places. So it does worry me, which is why I come back to the central point. Home teams, home setup, fine. Away setup has got to change, and it's certainly got to change come this Saturday. Because when you got Dan James and Nonto on the 2 wide areas, I'm really fearful of, unless we've got those wide areas covered, we're going to be severely exposed.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think that we'd all like to see a little bit more, should we say, rigidity away from home, even if it's at the expense of some of the swashbuckling. I think Graham was right. I think as Randall's game improved, then the side improved. He's been quite integral. We kind of need some other people to weigh in. And talking of other people weighing in, Adam, there were 5 changes from the last start. I've got them written down here. Paulson came in for Gibson, Forshaw for JB, Isaka for Bundu, Obafemi for Hardy, and Al-Haj came in for Callum Wright. Obviously, as well, there was the enforced change. Plegwith-Walo came on after 50 minutes, came on for Edwards, who we hope isn't too badly injured. He's been integral so far this season. And then even before the 60th minute, JB and Gray came on. And I think even Bundu and Hardy, when they came on, had a good impact too, just after 70 minutes. So there was a lot of new faces, in a sense, involved. And by the end, to my eye, it looked like there was sort of, was it a 4-4-2? Was it just 10 outfield players running around trying to make something happen? But it was sort of happy madness, wasn't it? Talk us through that, maybe to your eye, who caught the eye maybe in a good way or a bad way with the changes to the starting lineup, and then also with the substitutions. What did you make of it? And the squad depth, and maybe a comment on that.
Substitutions a lot better than those that came in as the changes from starters. I think that's obvious. And I think you can make a case that nobody who came in to start, who didn't start the last game, played particularly well. To reel them off in an order, start with my good friend, or should I say my ex-good friend, Victor Paulson, from what I'm about to say. I think we can draw a line in the sand now and say that thinking about Victor Paulson playing at centre-back was a lot more fun than actually watching Victor Paulson play centre-back. Everybody was abysmal. I don't think he stood out for being particularly so much worse than everybody else, but it was so obvious at times that he was a downgrade on Gibson and what he could offer. And I think one thing that really annoyed me with Paulson yesterday, he built a lot of his career, and particularly in the last 2 years, being good at the basics of defending, using his body well, making clearances, blocking shots. I never felt like he was going to block any shots yesterday. There were so many occasions where I thought, oh yeah, go on, just get your body in the way of that. Yeah, make the tackle there. And he just did nothing. And I think it was quite sad more than anything to see him not able to deliver on what his key skills should be. The Victor Paulson fan club is now regretfully empty. To be honest, if we signed him 5, maybe 10 years ago, I think there was a time in his career, and look, the stats from last season showed it, that he could have had an impact at our side at one point in his career, but it certainly doesn't look like it'll be anymore. A good signing on paper, perhaps, but hey, football's not played on paper, and football's played on a pitch, or apparently, if you're Victor Paulson, it's played in treacle, because that's what it looked like he was running through pretty much all day yesterday. So I think we're at the stage now where it looks like that one's not particularly worked out. Now, the Forshaw one was interesting. I think he was fairly anonymous for a little while, but I didn't think he had necessarily as bad a game as either everybody else or something happened in his past. But I think what's particularly interesting is that even with Forshaw coming in, Randall maintained his position as the deeper midfielder. And I just wonder if that would have been better the other way round. If you had Forshaw sitting deep, a la David Fox role, able to build play as a deep line playmaker, and Randall using his energy a bit further on and also able to help Edwards and Such on that right side. I didn't think Forshaw was awful. I just thought if you'd swap those two rounds, and that's not to say, I completely understand why we made the decision not to, because Randall, aside from the Cardiff game, has been very good in that role. But yesterday, that felt like it was something we were crying out for. Maybe a change mid-game might have helped us out a little bit, particularly after Randall's mistake for the second goal. I don't know. And then you go further forward. Now, Isaka, he's going to get a lot of credit for starting the comeback. I don't think he was very good at all, to be honest. And that's not to say he will never be good. Of course, he's got so much talent. And you saw the way that he ran at Kesler Hayden in the first half and put him under pressure, that he's got so much raw talent. But it needs a heck of a lot of refining at this point. I think he gives the ball away probably more than anybody in the league statistically that plays the same amount of minutes as he does. There's a lot that he tries that doesn't come off, and that's going to come with time. This isn't to say that I'm not an Isaka fan. I absolutely am. I just don't necessarily think right now he's ready for the Championship. Now, that's not to say that he's not going to be ready for the Championship as the season goes on, that we shouldn't be giving him minutes. I think back to Michael Cooper's first time in the team at the start of the 2021 season, where you could see the talent was there, but there were a few bits and pieces that weren't quite working out for him, and we kept him in the team, and we were handsomely rewarded for that, and we could well be with Saka again. But aside from the one moment for his goal, which, hey, he did well for the goal. It's the most important thing to do. Yeah, I wasn't impressed. And yeah, there's a lot more to come there. Obafemi, right now I'm feeling like the phrase second touch as a tackle was invented for Michael Obafemi. The amount that he tried and failed to hold up the ball yesterday wasn't great. And yeah, less said about that, the better, I think. It was, yeah, I didn't enjoy watching him play, and it's a shame because last time at home against Blackburn, I particularly did enjoy watching him play, and by then it looked as though he'd overtaken Ryan Hardy in the pecking order, and maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But yeah, that performance yesterday will certainly have done him no favours. Have I missed one out? I've named 4 of the ones that came in. Who was the 5th?
Al Haj, although it could be
Rami
argued
Al-Haj.
he was rested for this.
Yeah, yeah. And again, another one that I feel like, looking at Preston in the build up to this game, I felt that it looked as though they were vulnerable to through balls. Now, Preston's defence does a lot of the basics correctly, and I think we saw that with Liam Lindsay's story. You know, they're big, tall players. They deal with the long balls very easily, particularly against 5'8" Obafemi. And but they are vulnerable on the turn, and through balls have impacted them going through the first phase of the season. So yeah, I felt like Al Haj was the sort of one who could unlock the door, if you like, and yeah, he didn't really. I feel as though, I mean, he's got a lot of credit for his Luton goal, and he's got a lot of credit for the way that he transformed the team for a few games. But I get the feeling he's perhaps still building up match fitness, and hopefully, we're going to see the better of him going forward. But yeah, that's the 5. I think, yeah, you can make an argument that none of those 5 had a good game, and yeah, lots to work on going forward. What is a huge positive, as what we did, is the substitutions. Andre Gray looks every bit as championship striker. Now, I don't want to overreact because, you know, as we did with Obafemi when he scored against Blackburn, you know, it's one goal at the moment. There's still things to improve upon, and you know he still needs to get a start. I personally was surprised not to see him start yesterday, and I'm sure we'll see him a bit more going forward. But that feels like what we may have been missing ever since the Foster era started. The sort of striker that you're like, oh yeah, he belongs at this level. He's got that sort of movement. He's got a shot on him, and he can trouble all sorts of defenses at this level. It's really really encouraging. JB, again, another one I was surprised not to see start, particularly because he's not going to be able to play at Leeds next week. I thought that was a bit weird. Was it a coincidence that we looked better when he came on? I don't necessarily think so. But I do accept that Preston was sitting back a lot of that time, and he had a bit more time to make an impact. And a word on Bundu as well. I don't think he's had a good season at all up to this stage, but that cameo yesterday, really impressive. Did brilliantly at the back post to, first of all, keep the ball in play, and then get that assist to Whittaker for the last minute goal, and looked a threat, which he rarely has. So yeah, I've spoken through about 8 or 9 players there. I'll stop now, but just say, yeah, the substitutes I was really impressed with. The people that came in to start that weren't starting the previous game, I don't think I was impressed with any of them. And it creates a few interesting conundrums going forward.
For sure. Thank you, Graham. If I can ask you maybe to, I suspect you might be a little bit higher on Freddie Asaka than Adam was, but certainly Andre Gray was the name on many people's lips come full time. Your thoughts on those two specifically? That I think we can agree. Not everything Freddie did came off. He's going to be one of those players. Are the same for Ibrahim Sissoko.
Yeah, I mean, I've followed Freddie for the last few years through the academy, and he's been the standout player for us. Pace, and from what I hear, he's actually quicker than Ryan Hardy, so it just gives you some inclination with the pace that he's got. I remember him when he came on against Leeds when we were 2-0 down, and he gave Archie Gray, who's £40 million, the runaround. He put him on the back foot, so he's capable. He was up against KKH, who's a Premiership fullback. I mean, I only wish we had him this season on loan because he would make a hell of a difference. and he's probably one of the quickest fullbacks. And you know, he took him on. Yeah, and I agree with Adam. He does lose the ball, but I'd rather he took him on and lost the ball and kept trying to push out wide and make things happen. He's not a Sissoko. My preference for him would to be coming on as a impact starting, certainly away from home, and I think I would have done that at home yesterday. But if you don't play him, he's never going to get the experience. This is the problem with our youngsters, Callum Roberts, Tegan Finn. There's no opportunity. There's no gap between the under 18s and there's a gap between the under 18s and the first team, and there's no competitions to play them in. So unless we give them game time in the first team, and we can't get them out on loan until January, if that's ever going to happen. So the only way is to get them some game time on the pitch. Otherwise, they're never going to develop. So, you know, it's a conundrum, and I don't really know what the answer is. I would have preferred that they would have gone out to the National League or League Two side and got some game time up until January, but that didn't happen. So Freddie, work in progress. He's definitely got something. He'll learn. I was particularly disappointed that he didn't track KKH for the first goal. He switched off. He wasn't concentrating, and KKH was 5 yards ahead and had no chance of catching him up. As for Andre Gray, you can see he's got championship credentials, and probably I think he's played at a higher level. I think he played in the Premiership too. And he was always making space. He was always in the right place in case something happened, like all good strikers do. And if you look at the chance for where he nearly scored the fourth goal, he actually saw that cross coming and stepped back to give himself room to hit it on the half volley, and beautifully connected and fantastic save. But I was watching him; he was always right place, right time, which is something you can't say about Ryan Hardy or Michael Obafemi. But clearly he's not fully fit. He doesn't look fully fit. But he's wily, he's smart, probably got a few dark arts up his sleeve, which was singularly lacking in throughout the team. So I was impressed, and to be honest, I'd start him up at Leeds, because even if he's in the role up top on his own, you feel he can get us a foul, or you can get it into a feet and you're going to get it back. Whereas with Obafemi, it was coming back with interest, and it cost us to lose possession when we'd moved up the field. So I would start with Andre Gray, impressed, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what difference he can make to us over the next few games.
Yeah, I think most people would second that. Adam, just a very brief word, if you would, for our £1 million men. I thought they both did well yesterday, even if it was just in patches. I thought Barley Mumba was instrumental in lots of what was good. And Morgan Whittaker has the knack, does he not, of scoring vital goals. Just the second 90-plus minute to get points, just in recent weeks. Hopefully they finding their feet here down here and kicking on. But I think the man of the match, or I do want you to sort of wax lyrical about, in most people's eyes, was Dan Grimshaw, who kept it from being a cricket score, frankly. And I personally have been on the fence with some of his performances, as good as some of his saves have been and as good as his distribution is. But I thought he was almost impeccable yesterday. I thought he was his body language. You know, sometimes he was literally almost sort of like, "Lads, what are you doing? You know, I can't just do this on my own." But he persevered. He didn't give up, and he did really well yesterday. And I think really earned his corn.
Absolutely. I'll tackle the £1 million men first, and then come on to a bit more waxing lyrical. Well, let's put it this way. A few people, wrongly, in my opinion, have been calling for Morgan Whittaker to be dropped recently. I put it to those people, of all the players you would want that chance to fall to in the final minute in front of the Devonport end, who would you choose? And I think we all know the answer to that question. Mumba, do you know, I thought he grew into the game. There were times in the first half, and Mumba's not alone in this. There's I think everybody had a ball game in the first half where it really wasn't coming off with him. I was particularly disappointed. There were a few battles that he just wasn't winning, but he grew into the game really well. That cross for Gray, by the way, for his goal, magnificent to hit that first time and on the turn and to get that into a brilliant area. Yeah, really delivered, really starting. Obviously, Whittaker's lived up to his price tag and more. And to be fair, I think Bally has lived up to his price tag, but he's hitting the and more stage now as well to really becoming an influence at this level. And yeah, grew into it brilliantly. None of them were a patch on Dan Grimshaw, who, yeah, he had just about everything. The way I put it is this: swap those two keepers around yesterday, give Grimshaw to Preston and give us Freddie Woodman, and we lose that game really badly. Grimshaw's made a number of saves to keep us in it. He's adding that shot stopping to get those figures up, not quite to Cooper levels, but he's still really hitting good numbers. He was very, very unlucky to have conceded that first goal yesterday in particular. And the fact that his ball at his feet, I know that the fact that he was getting his ball to his feet often irked a few and was an annoyance at some stage that we weren't going forward. But I wasn't concerned because I have no issues with Grimshaw having the ball at his feet. I think he's delivered time and time again. And that is something that we haven't had. That's something that he has Cooper beaten on. I've no doubt about it. Michael Cooper's an astonishing goalkeeper of this level and is going to go far in the game, and he'll be in the Premier League before long. He is not as good with the ball at his feet as Dan Grimshaw. I think a fantastic find, and he's looking really, really much like money well spent at this moment in time. And yeah, I've mentioned swapping the keeper round. I remember walking back home after the game and remarking that I would be so annoyed if I was a Preston fan that had travelled down for that. The way that they've bottled that game in a strange way, because it looked like game management did not look like one of those flaws, but it clearly was for them because they in the end slightly fortunate not to lose a game that they were 3-0 up in, and Woodman was a part of that. He this season hasn't necessarily looked bad. He's another one actually whose long passing has been shown to be very good, but his shot stopping, it was particularly atrocious. What he's doing for that free kick to just push it in front of Freddie Asaka, I will never know. And I saw some comments as well that he should come for the cross for Gray's goal. I think that's possibly a little harsh, but it's other keepers might have done. But again, the third goal, I think most keepers having got a hand to it, save it. And he was appalling yesterday. And swap the two keepers round, I think we lose that maybe 5-1, even with the same chances that happen. So yeah, I think Woodman's going to be covered a little bit by the fact that he's made his last minute save. But his performance as a whole was abysmal, and Grimshaw's was fantastic. And I'm so glad it was that way around.
Thank you. I was really quite disappointed at full time with the performance, if not the result. But I felt a lot better after Wayne Rooney's press conference, because it seemed he saw much the same as me. That on another day, as he said, it could have been a lot worse. And I think I said in the pod chat, if you play that game 50 times, we lose it 49. Maybe we win it 1, and the other 48 we lose it. It did feel like that. But do you think it's good that Rooney's angry? He's talked about Graham. We talked about working on things in getting the balls in the box, etc., in training, and it just wasn't happening in game. Is it good that he's angry, that he sees it, or is it bad that the players seem to have been training all week and they're not executing it on the pitch? Is that the players? Is it the manager? Is it a worry? Is it just one of those things?
I do enjoy Wayne Rooney's press conferences. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's remarkably honest, perhaps even more honest than Steven Schumacher was. But watching it last night when I got in, yes, you're going to criticise the players. I know that, but I sensed a sense of it with the players rather than criticism, almost like I'm telling you what to do and you're not doing it type thing, which is probably true. But he's done that a few times, and I do wonder whether, like all great players, frustration builds that they can't do what you could do or what you show them you could do, and it's just a niggle. I don't know. It's the first time I felt it, to be honest, but I just thought he looked world weary. He looked slightly subdued. It's the first time I've sort of thought, something's not quite right. I don't know. He's had 8 days. He mentioned he travelled back. It took him 6 hours, I think, to get back from Millwall. He's going up to Manchester post-match, and he's doing a lot of travelling. So I thought he was looking tired. And I just hope that the point on reflection, he should take it as better than I sensed that he did. I don't think he was as euphoric or elated as he might have been. Fantastic recovery, great. Give the crowd the credit they deserve. Because let's be honest, we've got the Devonport. He's got a remarkable ability to sack that ball in late in games. I mean, it's unparalleled in my Argyle experience. I mean, we've never had that sort of finishing edge in games. So I don't know. It's just a slight niggle. I'm not that keen on managers being too critical on the players in public. 1 or 2 times, yeah, certainly after Cardiff, absolutely, and Sheffield Wednesday, absolutely. But don't know, just a niggle, something to watch. Hopefully, we won't have to suffer the same on Saturday. But I just sense his frustration with the players is beginning to show, and I don't know where that takes us.
For sure. So, the end of the month now, which was apparently an easier run. We got 4 points, took 4 points from the 5 games. But it really was a tale of 2 halves, wasn't it? There was the finish to that lovely run up to the international break, Adam, and then the sort of 3 games subsequently. So it's 4 points from 5 games. Is that around okay? Point per game? Can we live with that, or given who some of that opposition was, should we be doing better? And is it more worrying that the spread of those games, that we've got 1 point from the last 3? What do you think? Are we in a point where we can be worried, or can we write this off now and head into the next month and trying to turn it around and be optimistic?
I think should we be worried comes in 2 parts, and you can answer it in 2 different ways. Should we be worried about relegation? Yes, obviously. I mean, we should have been worried about relegation all season, but that's not because of recent results. It's the fact that that's where we are as a club. That's where our budget is. That's where our squad is, and that's where we're going to be fighting. It's the reality. So if I was to come here and say I'm not worried about relegation when you place 21st, it'd be a little bit odd. But I don't necessarily see it and go, oh, well, we're definitely going to go down because this run wasn't good enough. We've had 5 games and picked up 4 points. We're going at around a point per game. And that's obviously not great. But if you look before that, in the month of September, we had the 3 games picked up 6 points where I thought we'd pick up 0. Teams in our position have these fluctuations, and they've always had these fluctuations. And I think last season, Rotherham picked up 4 points in 2 games over Christmas last season. They're probably thinking, "Oh, hello, if we turned a corner now." They clearly hadn't. So it's the runs of form come and go, and I'm disappointed with how things have gone after the international break. But I'm not going to see it as the be all and end all, because we're in a situation where we've shown we can go toe-to-toe with anybody at home. Ask Sunderland. Sunderland have had a magnificent season so far, and were put to the sword at Home Park. We've shown we can do that. There's a little bit of refining to do away. Of course there is. There's possibly a lot of refining to do away. But away from home, if we don't have to We don't have to be on the ball every single time. I mean, of course, I don't want to see us losing 5-0 and 4-0 and things like that. I think those performances are an abject disgrace and they should be called out on that. But sometimes away from home in the Championship, things don't go your way. And we know from last season, having only won 3 games away from home and stayed up, they don't have to go your way much. There are a few games like the Swansea game where we maybe get a bit fortunate. A bit of tactical tweaking, which I agree with everybody is absolutely needed here and there away from home to get us on the right path. We can be encouraged. I think when you're a team of ours where you've got a magnificent home record and terrible away record, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to improve away from home or you're going to get worse at home. The second option obviously leads to going down. So hopefully we don't take that path and the home form still helps us along, which of course it could well. But the worry of relegation is always going to be overriding that because of where we are as a club. I'm disappointed with the last 3 games, but I'm not concerned for our entire season simply based on those games. I'm concerned for our entire season because of the reality of where we are. And there's every chance that after this disappointing run after the international break, we go into games where we're not expected to win, as we were in September, and perform over the odds. So yeah, there's fluctuations all the time with teams like ours, and it's just about getting on the right side of that dotted line at the end of the season.
So with that in mind, Graham, and this away form problem that we've got, there's 6 games in November, 4 of them are away. We've got Pompey at home, and we've got Watford at home, and the rest they either look difficult or they look critical. We've got Leeds away, Derby away, Norwich away, and Bristol City away. I know every game's important in the Championship, but now that we're sort of seeing the table shake out, is this a pivotal run of games? Should we be worried that we've got 4 away games in there, or is this an opportunity to get that monkey off the back and turn it around?
Well, I mean, the table is so compressed. So if you won a home game and won an away game, you get 6 points. You shoot up the table. So getting an away win in those 4 games is paramount in my view. I mean, Pompey obviously a winnable game, and Watford are in and out, depends which team turns up, but definitely winnable. So 2 home wins. We've got to get at least 1 away win from those 4.
Yeah.
If we took 4 points from the 4 games, I would be happy. Yeah. I can't see whichever way I look at it, I can't see Leeds. But what I do remember is Foster set up against Leeds. Well, I mean, the Schumacher game against Leeds, we were terrible. I thought we were going to get absolutely hammered in the first half. But to our credit, we got back. Ben Wayne scored, and we had him on the back foot. The Foster game at Leeds actually was quite a good away setup, and whilst he's often despised, Foster's away setup was quite effective. I think we won 2 games, drew 3 and lost 3, something like that. His away record was actually really good, so it's following those sort of setup footsteps, I would say. Nick a win, possibly Derby would be the obvious one. Norwich unbeaten in 21 games, I think, at home, so that's a tough one. So if we get 4 points from away, win the 2 home games, we'll be doing okay. And what people forget, we're actually the same number of points, 3, I think, as Schumacher at the same stage of the season last season. And were we talking about relegation in the same way then as now? Because I think we were 2 or 3 places higher up because of the way the points were. I don't recall that we were. We just lost 2 home games at Millwall and Swansea. So the threat of relegation, I mean, it's the Championship. Anything could happen. Anybody can go out of form and fall down the table and get in the bottom 3. I think we're good enough just to be outside, which is what our aim is. But what I don't want to do is our last home game is Leeds United, so that's not. We won't be doing a rescue job in that game necessarily, particularly if they need the points to get in the Premiership. So 4 points from those 4 games, I'd be happy. I'd target Derby as which we did the previous season, and I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. If we're pottering along around a point per game, I'm not going to complain, and a little bit above that. I think last season maybe folks weren't so worried about being on this points total because there were some abject horror shows beneath us, weren't they? I think you had Rotherham, you had Wednesday, you had QPR having horrible starts, and unfortunately, it seems this season it's going to be much more competitive. I don't think the top is so far away from the middle, and I don't think the bottom so far away from the middle either. Even Cardiff, who looked like they were going to do us a favour and be a basket case, seem to have sorted themselves out somewhat. So it's going to be a long old season where anyone can beat anyone. I think it might have been, was it Rooney's season when he was at Derby the first time round? That was a season where the middle of the championship was just ridiculously compressed. There were sort of like 10 points at the end of the season between about 9 or 10 teams. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be another one of those championship seasons. So one question Aaron is very keen for me to include. He says he's put out a tweet that the clocks went back last night, and he wanted to know if you could go back to one game that you've seen Argyle play, what game would you go back and relive, and why? I'll start with you, Adam, because I think Graham might have an interesting answer that you and I can't allude to.
Fair enough. The obvious one is Peter Hartley Day, but I'm not going to go with that because there's a couple of reasons why I want to say Port Vale the day we won the league. Because that was a particularly hectic weekend. You guys don't need my life story on this podcast, but the day before I had to go to a wedding, the day after I had to travel up north again, and in the middle, I had a coach journey to and from Staffordshire to see Port Vale. So it was an incredible day, an incredible game, and it would be really nice to be able to experience that again when I'm not, basically dead on my feet. So yeah, I'm going to go for the Port Vale one just because everything about that, everything about the direction the club was heading in that day, the fact that we've got the silverware, the fact that we'd had an unbelievable season, an unbelievable points total. Yeah. As obvious as the Portsmouth one may be, I think an away day like that is going to take some beating for many years to come. I mean, hey, particularly with our form. But yeah, Port Vale for me. Just being able to relive that day again, and not feeling like I could just fall asleep for hours at any moment. Yeah, that's the one for me.
Well, I'll take Yard Dog Day then, just for many little reasons. That was such a great occasion. As long as I don't have to go and watch us play at Wembley again afterwards, that is. Graham, what game would you pick if you could relive one Argyle game again?
QPR, I think, the 2-0 win that gave us the championship. QPR was second, and I think it was definitive in who would finish top. But the manner in which we won, and bless him, because I think it's 2 years since he passed a week or so ago. Always remember Sparks, his commentary, obviously revisiting it afterwards, it's legendary, and captured that moment. I mean, the Mickey Evans header, and then Freo, who's probably my all-time favourite Argyle player, just slipping through and tucking it away. That's it. Argyle are up, never to be forgotten. And for away, I'd agree with Adam. Port Vale, absolutely all day long. Best away day ever by a mile.
Brilliant. I wish I had been there. I didn't go to a single game in that season because of the way life is for me. But obviously a great regret. But one of those that the pictures always bring a smile. Just one of those moments that even with some of the faces that have gone and relationships that have changed, just like a really incredible moment. And of course, Sir Gordon Sparks, fondly remembered and very much missed. So, talking of bad away form, needing to get an away win in this next run, Argyle head to odds-on favourites Leeds United next weekend in the next championship fixture. What do we think of this one? Is it a free hit, inverted commas? Is it a chance to bloody the nose? Does it play into our hands as they will absolutely fly at us, you imagine, to put us to the sword, and we can maybe play out and through and counter with the attacking talents we have? Graham, I'll come to you first on this, and then Adam, you can mop up anything that Graham fails to add to your liking.
Well, like Millwall, we haven't won at Ellen Road for over 60 years. I think we've got 3 points out of our last 33 there. So 3 draws and 10 defeats. And I think we've only scored about 4 goals. So, yeah, if you believe in that sort of bogey team history sort of thing, we're done for. But, what I do remember is the FA Cup game, right? Perhaps they weren't at the same full strength as they were for the league game, but we really did put a good effort in against them. So it's possible. Play 4-2-3 with inverted fullbacks. I'll be watching with my eyes shut, I think. But if we can set up in the manner that we've discussed, then we've got a chance, Stoic defence, and we've got capability of scoring goals. It's a shame, in a way, Sudoku's not playing, because he could be the sort of player that would take him on and make a difference. But yeah, when you look at, they've got Pirro up top and James and Monto out wide, that's a pretty formidable front three at this level, and we've really got to be at our defensive best to cope, and I'm worried. That's all.
Yeah, we haven't really found a defensive best all season, have we?
Game? Anything's possible.
Yeah, we haven't really found a defensive best all season, have we?
No. Well, it's the West Brom game. I think Leeds are better than West Brom, but we played really well there, and yes, they got the goal, but we took it to them. And speaking to West Brom fans afterwards, they thought they were the best side they'd seen at the Hawthorns for a while. So we can do it. We haven't got the same personnel, unfortunately, that we had in that game. And Gibbo's going to be a massive miss, because he's our defensive rock. I hope Plaguey plays alongside him. I'd feel more confident. Because what Adam was saying about Victor Paulson, yeah, his stats were good last year, but playing for DC Washington is one thing. The intensity of the championship, with the pace and the power and the concentration, is something different. And how Hadji's finding that. And I do think Victor Paulson's looking, blimey, it's a bit tougher than he thought it might be. So I'd be worried if he was centre back. I don't know whether he'd play him right back or not. But if he's playing right back in a 4 and we've got 5 in front, I'd feel more comfortable. So, looking through squinted eyes and just hoping for the best is the best I can offer for that.
I think a lot of people after Saturday would like to see Paulson right back in the changing room, as the old gag goes. But let's hope he has a redemption arc, like so many Argyle players have had in the past. Adam, I'm sure you've started your scouting for your written report for Argyle Life, your written preview. Anything to add? Have any glimmers of hope that this might be one of those weird, fluky championship results that we nick somehow?
The Championship's a funny league. We all know. I know earlier we mentioned that we had a few basket cases below us last season, and Sheffield Wednesday were one of them. But in that terrible run they had, they went up to Ellen Road and got a very credible 0-0 draw. It can happen. It's a strange league. That being said, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's the most likely outcome. Shall I put it like that? Yeah, there's a team who have a number of players who wouldn't look out of place in the Premier League, and a team that do not travel well at all, if we're going to put it very lightly, and they're missing their most important defender. yeah, it's one you can only see going one way. But again, we saw yesterday that football's a strange old sport, that the championship's a strange old league, and these things might happen. But yeah, is it a free hit? Is what I go back to. I mean, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we're not expected to get anything from this game, and if we lose it, you know, it's expectation. There's a lot more. Um, there's bigger fish to fry, if you prefer, in the coming days and weeks after the Leeds game. Um, what we can't do is go there and be totally embarrassed, as we saw at Cardiff, as we saw at Sheffield Wednesday. If this Leeds team are clinical and we play like we did in those games, um, I don't think it's a stretch to say that double figures would be in order. So we've got to avoid that. We've got to avoid being totally embarrassed up there, which, to be fair, we did last season. We didn't play well particularly that day, but I think a 2-1 was certainly very credible, and would certainly be again. If we go up there and lose by 1 goal, I don't think anybody's going to be particularly bothered. So yeah, I do agree with a lot of what Graham said. It's looking behind the proverbial sofa, and just hoping we get what we can, and anything's going to be a bonus. So as long as we're not totally embarrassed and totally outplayed, I think it's one of those where we're able to move on quickly. And of course, if we do get a point, or God forbid, if we get all three, that's going to be a huge bonus. I can't see it, but something, as the comment on screen has said, avoiding a cricket score is probably, what we're looking for here, against a team with such talent. They do drop points, oddly, every now and then. I'd be very surprised if they drop points to this Plymouth Argyle side, and the way we travel. But let's see. Oh, Ben, you're muted. It's going so well.
It was going so well. I've literally looked at the time and I've done an hour and I'm feeling so rough. I need to go and take another antibiotic. And I was just like, took the eye off the ball. I thought we're nearly there. It's kind of like when you need a wee and you go to the loo and you've been holding it all that time, and then your brain sort of says, "Oh, we're nearly there," and you start to, can't get your buttons undone in time. And it's like that. I was rushing. My brain was rushing off to it was on other matters. That was a strange aside. Anyway,
we've got great insight into your life there.
If we get back, everybody's done that. Everybody's been out on the beer, and then like you come home and like the taxi's taken longer than you thought, and you've held it all that time. You think, yes, I've made it, and then you're rummaging to get. Yeah, everyone's done it. I'm not having you embarrassing me like that. I'm not having it. If we do take an absolute battering, or we just don't show up again against Leeds, does Pompey become something of maybe a must win? Do you think? And give me your prediction for the Leeds game.
I wouldn't necessarily go as far as must win at this stage of the season, because obviously we've come back from more dire situations before. But I think if you're looking at the two games in isolation, there's one game here that you're targeting. There's one game here that you think you can get something out of, and that's very clearly the Portsmouth one. There's a way to a team that should be challenging for promotion, and home to a team that's challenging for relegation. I mean, I know I've said the Championship's a strange league, but I know which one I think we're more likely to win. So I think the Portsmouth game is going to be big, regardless of what happens. Of course, if we were to get something at Leeds against expectations, then it would ease the pressure slightly. But then if we were to go and lose to Portsmouth, I mean, we're in those dire straits again. So I think it's going to be big, whatever happens. And that makes me think, okay, well, what do we want to do with the lineup? I've seen some of the comments about, do you perhaps treat this game as not necessarily throw it, but treat it as the one that's less important and save your stars for Portsmouth? I wouldn't go too far with it, but I can certainly see the argument. In normal circumstances, I'd absolutely want to start Andre Gray, and I feel as though, looking at his fitness and looking at the fact that he hasn't had a start yet, do I want to start him at Ellen Road and then have to start him again immediately on Tuesday? I'm not necessarily sure I do, to be honest. I'd rather have him there in terms of the game that we can win, and what comment on screen from Stevie. I'd pick our strongest side against Portsmouth. I absolutely have sympathy with that for you. I just wouldn't be changing completely everything, because there also needs to be some rhythm there as well. So with all of that in mind, it's hard to see any result other than a home win. I mean, perhaps it'd be one of those last season where we're outplayed and the scoreline flatters are slightly even when we lose. But Yeah. I suspect we'll see 2-0 Leeds, and one of those games where there's only 2 goals in it, but realistically, is much more comfortable than the scoreline suggests.
Fair dues. What about you, Graham? Do you think Portsmouth is something of a must win yet, especially if we get a Tonkin at Leeds? And what's your prediction for the away trip to Ellen Road?
Fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed. Doctor Who like behind the sofa. If we keep it to 2-0, I'll be happy. If we got a goal, I'd be even happier. As for Pompey, I mean, it's set up. Sky, they love us. Bouncing atmosphere. Great away support, loud. Probably the best atmosphere of the season, I think. It's set up for a classic. And all I want is a clean sheet and a 2-0 win. And I'd be really happy with that. So, I can't see Leeds getting a point or a win. But Pompey, I can see us being right up for it. Sissoko will be back for it. So he's got a point to prove. And the stage is set for him, isn't it? So right in front of the Sky cameras, in front of the nation, show us, concentration on Wayne Rooney's post-goal celebrations would be really something to send around the country. I'd enjoy that. So 2-0 win against Pompey and the hopeful narrow defeat at Leeds, but we'll see.
You're both in agreement then on what is needed and what is likely. I think that's a good place to leave it. It was unlike some other hosts you see around here. When I aim for an hour, I keep it to just an hour. Thank you everybody for joining us. I will say down here on the screen, you can be pointing my cursor at it, and you guys can't see my cursor. I need to go and take some medicine. But there is a little white bar with all our socials: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I don't know what that one is. YouTube, and something else. If you know what those other 2 are, follow us on those also. But the other 5, please like, follow, subscribe, and everything else you need to do on those platforms. You can tell I am not down with the kids and the technology, but it's much appreciated. It does us many favors if you can do that. Thank you for joining us. And let's all hope that our away form turns around with an absolute shock, surprise battering of Leeds next weekend. Cheers all.
Cheers all.